Okay. All right, y'all. Hey, first, thank you for coming. I'm Lee Pitts, Bobby Garland Pro Staffer, and we're going to talk some crappie fishing today. We got a small group here, so I want everybody, if you got some questions, or if I'm talking about something and you say, hey, I want to know a little more about that, or show me again what you're talking about with this, just holler at me, because I want everybody, like I said, hopefully what we can do here is give you some ideas. And I know everybody has the, hey, I like to throw a float, I like to tight line, I like to do this. Maybe I'm gonna talk today about dock shooting. And so maybe that'll give you some ideas when it's not working, what you normally do, the way you like to catch them, or the fish have changed. Maybe this will give you another thing in your arsenal that you can go to try to catch more crappie. So once again, I'm going to talk with a dock shooting. Are you very familiar with dock shooting? Anybody ever done it before? Kind of know what I'm talking about? All right, it's kind of I tell everybody, a lot of with the dock shooting, it doesn't matter if it's on floating docks, permanent docks with a post, brush on, whatever. It's one of those things that these crappie really, really love to get up underneath these docks. Their eyeballs, the way they sit there on top of their head, they don't like to be staring into that sunshine, so they can get in the shade on these docks where the normal traditional way of just casting to them or flipping a float on the corners of it, they get tucked in there. So this is something that you can do to catch those fish that otherwise you couldn't get to. I'm going to go first how my rod and reel that I like to use. Like I said, this isn't any kind of big high dollar technique that you got to go out and buy the most expensive rod that you can or the highest dollar reel. I like this. I'm gonna show you. I like to keep it as light as possible, because all day long you're sitting out here and you're shooting that, sticking it out. My old shoulders can't take it like they used to. I've gotten a little older now. I'm 22, I think, or something like that. Anyway, I've gotten a little bit older. And as light as I can keep this is a Wally Marshall Signature Series. It's from Lew's. I like the Lew's equipment. You can, I'm not trying to give a sales pitch for Lew's. That's just what I use. This is a Spin Spool Light. It's a 100 series. It's a smaller reel. There's several on the market right now. You can go to Walmart and pick up for $15, $20, just a small reel. It's got a good drag system, good ball bearings in it. I like that. I like something with a good drag that you're not having it catching on you and jerking on you, because sometimes you get that big fish under there. I keep my drag set pretty loose. That way I know what I've got and I'm kind of playing. But also this has a small line capacity. You don't need a big, thick, big bale spool like you're going to be fishing for stripe with and pitching way out there. Usually you're not looking 15, 20 yards is all you're shooting, and not even that. But normally what I'll use, I like something with a little bit of backbone to it. This is a 6.6 rod. I prefer a 7 just because I've got a little bit bigger wingspan than most. Got a little bit bigger around the belly too than most, but I try to when I'm starting out shooting, and a lot of people come to me and they talk to me, hey, I want to learn how to do this. It's kind of like a golf swing or shooting a bow and arrow. You want to try to use that same anchor point each time. If you're shooting a bow, you're not going to turn it crooked and shoot this way one time and then shoot this way another time, or shoot it the other way. If you'll get where you can use that same anchor point, and when I'm saying anchor point, like I'm going to engage my reel right here. What I like to do is, this is a 6.6 rod. I like to try to keep it maybe 6-8 inches over my face of my reel. And what that does with that, I always want this rod to be out in front of me, sitting out, just like you're going to shoot there and aim towards it. Same thing as shooting a rifle or a bow or whatever. Use that rod as your sights. I don't pull it sideways or pull it over this way. I try to keep it all in line. So when I'm getting low right here, bent over, and you don't have to stay hunched over all the time. A lot of times if I've got clients, I set double seat systems up, and then I've got an open boat that I use so I can put the double seat systems in it going out the side of the boat. So they're sitting in a seat low because you want that trajectory. You don't want to sit up here shooting down. It's not going to skip well on you. You want to try to get the most distance on the skip as you can. Get it on out through there. So I'll pull this back. And one other thing, I've seen a lot of people, they'll grab the head of it and try to grab the head. Okay, that business end of it's still back there behind your fingers. Bad experience, guarantee it on that right there. And I've even had some clients, I'm trying to tell them, and they're like, yeah, I'm okay. And you'll hear them, oop. I said, it got you, didn't it? But I grab it in the bend of the hook where the point is outside my fingers. You can see that right there. I keep it that way. If I do slip or try to pull it sometimes, and it's just human nature, you'll make a little skip through there and one of them will thump it and you'll miss him. You want to reel it back as fast as you can. You just grab it and want to shoot. That's when you're going to get stuck with it. But I'll load that rod up, and I've got it low. I'm not going to let it go. But everything's in front of me right here. It's all sitting here. I'd shoot it down the hall, but they get stuck in that carpet. But and then when you flip it, I've got just enough backbone in this rod till about midway's up. And then I don't want too soft of a tip, because if you get one like a willow limb that you can just shake, you're not going to be accurate with it. And what that's going to do when you shoot it, it's going to cause it to go straight up. Every time you do it, you can't, if you try to go lower, it's going to hit right in the water. But I had a guy one time, he was telling me, he kept shooting, and I'd hear it tink, tink. He's hitting the rafters, he's hitting the boat. He's like, my torch is off. My torch is off. I finally looked at him and said, man, what are you talking about? He said, my torch is off. I was trying to shoot it towards there, but it's going towards there. So your torch is going to be off if you do it that way. But what I do whenever I skip it in there, and I'll let it do its thing, engage my reel, and then I just try to hold that rod at about a 90. I like this high-vis line. My eyesight is not as good as what it once was, but I can see, you're not bass fishing, not catfishing. It's not a real aggressive strike. A lot of times with these crappie, when you skip it in there, you may not even know he's got it. But once you've made 2 or 3 shots, or if with my hummingbird, I can come and put it on side scan or my down imaging. I know the depth. I know about how far that bait's going to fall. So sometimes if you skip it, you engage your reel again and pull that up. That line's got a little bow in it and it's sinking. It stops. He's got it. He may just hold it right there, just thump, or it may move side to side. So that's why I like that high vis. Even in clear water, it doesn't seem to matter. I think that, it blends in good, that high vis yellow. It's something I like. Sometimes hazy days, it may be a little difficult. If you got a cloud cover or something like that, you may not can see it as good, but you're not going to see regular, monofilament anyway. I do like to use mono. I don't use, any braid or anything with this. I think the monofilament not only helps it fall better, I like a 4 to 6 pound test. Even if I'm in places that I know there's some big ones around, 8 pound just doesn't seem to do as well with the light heads that I'm using. I like a 1/32, 1/24, every now and then a 16th if they're real aggressive and I got to put a little speed to it. Sometimes that 16th may fall a little too fast. But it's something that, like I said, once you kind of get the hang of it and get where you can skip that in there. And another thing with the docks, I was at a lake here about 2 weeks ago. I like docks on the Coosa 6, 7 feet, 4 feet, those shallower docks when they get ready and get right, because I think the bigger fish, they relate to that type of structure here. Some of the other lakes though, I was sitting the other day in 68 foot of water. It was floating dock and the fish were stacked under it. I went by with my hummingbirds and was looking, and they were stacked under the floating, the floats on a floating dock. And I guess it was cause the algae that was on there and the heat, that the minnows and everything was up eating that algae, so the crappie were with them. Even in that depth of water, the fish were 3-4 foot deep. So, I mean, it doesn't make much sense. You got all that depth, and they're laying just right under these docks. So that's another thing to kind of think about and play with a little bit. I like a bait that, and I brought some of these here with the garlands. That new live roamer is a good bait. The baby shads. I don't like a bait that has a whole lot of appendages off of it. It seems not to skip quite as good. And also with a curly tail, you got to put a little speed to that curly tail to make it work. Sometimes they're just wanting this bait real slow. They're wanting it just falling, just little twitches. And even whenever I watching it, I'm not trying to overpower that. You know, I'm sitting there just kind of giving a little twitch, and usually with that bow and that line, I can watch it, and it may just be a shake. It may just be just that. Let it fall a bit more, pull it a little bit more, and just a shake. And all of a sudden, then you'll feel that little bit where he comes up and kisses it. So don't think that it's going to be just one of those, you know, like one grabs a spinnerbait or something like that. Anybody got any questions so far? What I try to do, and I'll kind of get it a little bit behind, most time about the butt of the rod. And it all depends too. Sometimes, you know, you may slip up and have a little more slack than what you want, but usually it's all like this right here. That's pretty close to the butt of that rod on it. Now on the longer rods, I'll choke it up some just because I've got further to pull and more rod to load up on it. And I'm going to show you some of these right here, just kind of how I'm doing this and how I rig it. I like a fast, you know, I don't want something real sluggish. I like a fast tip on that. I like a little bit of backbone. You know, I don't want something just real limber. If you've got too much backbone, you can tell I don't want a broom handle, you know, but it's something that I want something that's going to load up good and not be real flimsy. That helps with my accuracy a whole lot more. Like a medium, yeah. Just something like that, medium light. I'm trying to think. Another thing too, you know, when we're dealing with this right here, this is 1/24th. And I'm going to show how bad my eyes are here too. So I like to do a little loop knot. And I wouldn't want a bass fish with it, you know, or a striped fish, but it's something that with the 6-pound test and with the rods and those being able to absorb most of the pressure, that light line, this little loop knot, and it's an easy knot. It's something that you can tie pretty quick once I get it through the eyelet here. But all I'm going to do is, it's like a granny knot. Like I said, with these fluorescent lights, I can't see nothing. There we go. Nope. I probably need to shave that paint a little bit. Yeah, got a feel for it. Hey, where'd it go? And you can't see it from here. What I'll do, I'm just going to kind of show you how I tie it, and I'll leave the tag end off of it. Come on in, man. You're good. I needed those young eyes just then to help me tie this knot. But all I'm doing, I'm holding that. I put one, it's just through the eyelet. I'm holding it, so it's just doubled up right here, just like you would tie your shoe, looping it one time through that hole. And then I've got that loop knot, and I just cut the tag end off. I'm gonna walk by and I'll show you kind of what I'm doing right here. And that little bitty, like I said, that's not nothing I would flip a bass jig on at Gunnersville, but it will hold. The biggest stripe I've ever caught on Macusa was 31.5 pounds, and it was on 6-pound test with a crappie rod. So, like I said, it's not a real strong knot. It's just a little loop knot right there. And what that allows, it allows that light bait to flip and flop. in the water. It's just one of those deals that kind of, what's up, man? How are you? Like I said, you're not dealing with a whole lot of weight on this. So when that fish runs up and he may swing on it and miss it, it lets that bait do just like a minnow trying to get away from it. You know, you've got a real tight knot on there and it's a light bait. You're not going to have near the action with that little bit. Like I said, this is a compact bait right here. And you can hook these one or two ways. A lot of times if I want to slow that fall down, this bait will lay sideways, and you can tell just me holding it, that action that's got on that tail. Or you can rig it straight up and down if you want more of a darting move to it. I'm just going to kind of hook it right here. There we go. And that's kind of my rig.
Will that not slip?
Mm-mm. If you cinch it in good right there, it's not going to go anywhere. And I cut that tag in off. I just left it right there. But see, and that's a small little compact bait, but it's got enough action that you don't have to move it or put a lot of speed to it for it to dance around. You know, it's something that you can kind of, and you can see how we're just shaking it a little bit right there, that tail action. A what now? A swivel on it? I don't. And the reason being, it adds a little more weight. And if it was a heavier bait, you could probably get away with that. But this, with the light line, I don't put that on there. But any questions so far from anybody?
Is there any advantage in using like a shorter rod? Because the fellow that I fish with taught me, he uses like a 4-foot rod. So are there any advantages or disadvantages in that?
It's whatever you're comfortable with. Like I said, I like a little longer one, and the reason being I can back off of a dock more. And for the reason I do that, wind, current, or noise or something, I like to stay off of that dock a little more. And what I try to do too, with my Minn Kota, I'll turn that motor down and kind of where I'm not turning and blowing them out, just all of a sudden a bust of waters hit them in the face. They don't like it, and some people don't think about that. I've seen guys, they'll come in and set their boat down, flop that trolling motor down, come right up to it and the boat's still moving, and turn it 5 yards from the first pole and blow it out, and then want to try to fish it. Kind of like deer hunting. They know you're there. I try to fool them for one, and I use a lot of scents too. I'll put, they make, the slab jam. They make all kind of little scents you put on your hand, and I used to not worry about that. When they're biting real good and the fish are killing it, you probably don't need it. But those days when it's tough, if you can fool them with not only the sight, a little vibration, a little action, and a smell and taste, it just puts more in your side of bringing them in the boat. So that's some of the things I like to play with. The 4-foot rod deal that you're talking about, if you're comfortable with it and you can get it up underneath that dock, hey, that's great. It's whatever you're comfortable with. A bigger fish, I like a little more length just because you've got more leverage with him and can control that fish better. But like I said, it's whatever you're comfortable with. I know a lot of people, there's a buddy of mine and he's older. He likes to take a real long rod, and where I'm skipping and shooting, he'll choke it up and run that rod way up under the dock and then just start feeding line back to it. And I said, what are you going to do when that fish hits it and you got that rod halfway under that dock? I said, you can't set the hook. He said, yeah, I can. He'll pull it straight backwards and then just start pulling that line again. So there's different ways for, this isn't, hey, this is chiseled in stone. This is how you got to do it. It's not. This is just kind of how I do it and how I like to do it. Had a lady one time, we were out on a guide trip, and we were vertical dropping live bait down on fish. And I got a bad habit. I watch my hummingbirds. When I see a school of fish, I'll go to mumbling. Oh, God, that's some good ones right there. That's a good fish right there. And I tell them, I said, we got to be quiet. We're over these fish. They're suspended about 10 foot. And she would we got rods in the holders, and she would start hitting those rods. Come on, baby, come on, baby. And I was trying to be a nice guy. I was like, ma'am, if you don't mind, we gotta be quiet. We gotta be quiet. And she, oh, I'm sorry. And she's hitting them, and all of a sudden her rod go whoop. And so about 5 minutes, 10 minutes later, she did it again. I'm trying to explain, if you don't mind, gotta be quiet. And all of a sudden another rod, whoop. So I looked around and said, hey, start beating on them rods, you know. And she said, well, you told me not to. I said, you're the only one getting bit. We're going to do whatever it takes to get bit. So, you know, that's kind of part of it. A lot of this, if you get the mechanics and get the idea of skipping it under there, you know, it's like going to play golf. You may hit 50 bad shots, but you shoot that one and it skips up under there just right, and you pick that rod up and that line goes, boom. It'll get you coming back and do it again. So, you know, this just kind of gives you some ideas on the days that how you normally catch them and how you know is productive. If it's not working, it'll give you something else to kind of look at. And it's fun. You know, you can kind of, it's like playing a little game. You know, you're cat and mouse with them. You're shooting it. The biggest thing, too, is angles. You know, don't just pull up like this line right here is a dock. Don't just pull up to that dock and shoot in the fronts of them. Okay, go to the next one. There's been a whole lot of times I'll shoot those poles. I try to hit both sides of every pole, try to do different techniques, bring it up through there high, let it go to the bottom, maybe bring it up, just trying to figure out how they want it. It's all, crappie are the most finicky fish I've ever fished for. And it all depends on how they feel that day. It's not how you feel that day, it's how they feel that day. And so I've had it before. I've shot a dock where I thought, it's done. And I'll come on around the corner and hit it from a different angle and catch 10 off that same pole that I've just fished 10 shots and didn't get bit on. It's how they set up. And once again, maybe wind current, maybe that's the third dock in a creek swing, and that water's coming through this way, and they're catching that bait that's flushed on out a little too much on that edge. It's ever how that crappie wants to set up. And like I said, it's just playing with it, getting to know your equipment, getting to know. I love that slab slayer, the baby shad, something that is a tight, and I say I don't like something with a lot of appendages on it until we just got the new mayfly out. I'm sure all y'all know what a mayfly looks like. That new pack right here. Let me show you. It's got a whole new design, but this, and I'm gonna leave this up here. I want everybody to come look at them. Already pre-scented, pre-rigged. You can see how things it's hard to hold. But it's just like a mayfly. I'm gonna leave them up here so you can come look at them. It's got that stinger tail, little split tail on it. And I like it because it's compact enough, even with that longer tail with the split and the little arms coming out of it, it skips really, really well. And that's one of those things that, talking with them, you know, and with several of their products, the big strollers, I don't like shooting docks with those. They got a big thumper tail on the back of it. You're working it too slow, the tail's not going to do what it's really designed to do if you were tight lining or trolling or something like that. So I like the little compact baits. I don't want to overpower stuff with bigger baits on my docks. They seem to be usually that smaller bait, what they're looking for, and that's because that's what's in there eating on the poles, the algae, the stuff that's on those poles, so that's what they're keying on. Anybody else?
I just had a question like it makes springs.
Okay.
The fish get up under them floats.
Yeah.
How do you can't shoot up under that float, so how do you get to that fish to get him back?
You can get under there. And the biggest thing is, too, with those pontoons under it, shoot those pontoons. I was up in Oklahoma, and we were going to film a show, and they said, okay, we're going to do a dock shooting. Never been on Grand ever. And I said, is there any docks out here? He said, yeah, there's docks all around the corner. We went 30 foot deep, floating docks. I'm like, oh boy, this is not going to be good for old Lee right here. But got to shooting, look for the cracks where the floats are in them. Look for where in the boat slips, if you can get a gap that big between a pontoon and even where the motor sits, the openings on pontoons, they'll lay under those pontoon boats just like they will the other ones. So any little crack you can get to is what I look for. Because the biggest thing is shade. They're going to be laying under that for shade, you know. And they get around it good too. And a lot of times if you can find a light, I say shade all the time, but if you can ever find a light at night and those bugs are all around it, skip a bait across there. Do the same thing. And I do this with cypress trees. If you like to fish pine laydowns or limbs that are out in the water, big trees fell down, where you can throw floats around it. If you get a laydown, take that, shoot it under there, just like you would a dock. So I use that application not only on docks, floating docks, permanent docks, but also cypress knees, trees that you couldn't get into casting and skipping it out through there. Something about that bait skipping across the top of the water makes them look up. And when that bait falls in their face, they can't help it. They're going to kiss it. Hey, man.
I just had a question. When you were putting the hook through the bait,
Uh-huh.
like advantages or disadvantages or whatever coming out the back, like the top of the bait versus the stomach. Like, when I've seen people put them in before where you come out, what I call the top of the bait versus the hook sticking off the top of the back there.
Okay, let's make sure I got what you're saying. Just kind of put that like
People hook it like this, or maybe have it coming out.
on the bottom. Yeah, the thing with this, the way that eyelet sets on that bait, that's how that bait's going to rotate. So if I turn it over, it's still going to rotate to how that eye is sitting on there.
White will be on the top.
Do what now?
You run through the belly, you throw it out there.
Oh yeah, you're talking about just flip-flopping it? Where?
Coming out the white instead of.
Yeah, either or is on top. It's not gonna matter. I mean, like I said, I had, which I got scolded a little bit on, but I had a bait that I was using and doing a presentation with, and later one of my men he said, "That ain't the way that bait works." I said, "Well, it does in Cherokee County, So it's whatever works. Like I said, and I play with stuff. Yeah. Well, I mean, if you do that, then the white's going to be on top. And this bait too, and this isn't what you're talking about, but this is a bait designed too to also put it sideways. I'm not always this blind, just these lights. But like right there, that's what I was talking about hooking it down the side. That'll slow that fall down a little bit. See how I've got it like it's flat, and instead of it being parallel, I've turned it over this way, and that'll help that bait to kind of, it'll have more of a glide to it. Just different ways to figure them out, different things. And that's the one good thing about doing this. Like I said, nothing's chiseled in stone. You find out something that works, hey, you're ahead of the game, Anybody else?
You said 4 to 7 feet docks is what you prefer.
On the Coosa, I do. A lot of other lakes, some of these clear lakes, that deep water, they'll suspend up underneath it. And the biggest thing is that's where I use my electronics to get a good look at them. Yeah. Normally for my dock shooting, I like that end of March, April, May, and then that October, November. But right now, on several of the lakes, not just Weiss Neely, Gunnersville, Logan Martin, these fish are on docks right now. We're not seeing them coming into the bays in the troughs. I was talking to some guys out here a minute ago. They stopped me. He said, "Hey, man, up there in your cove on Weiss, we killed them on the docks about 4 or 5 foot deep, and we're low right now." And it doesn't make sense because I've looked in where I live, I've looked at that for 3 weeks and there's no fish out in the open where they should be migrating to come in there. But yet them pound and a half, pound 3/4 are already back on them docks. Like I said, it's a different day every day. So, anybody else? Yes, sir. Okay. Kind of finding that visibility line on it. I've not heard of that, but that is, I mean, that does work. That's a good idea. Yes, sir. I mean, that's something. Yeah. You know, I can remember, I think, I can't remember who it was, but they were advertising back in the 80s when, you know, you had to watch every fishing show that came on, but it was a indicator that, just like you said, it was high tech back in the day now, but you drop this little thing, looked like an ice cream cone upside down, and it'd go down so far and it'd tell you what color you're supposed to use. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, yeah. So, you know, it's just like playing around and figuring out what works best for you and on your waters. Every water's different. Every day's different. So we've had before where, you know, I went and it's the same weather conditions, same wind, same water levels, and had a great day with some clients. And just knowing the next day, hey, man, at lunch I'm gonna be back home. I'm gonna be done. And you go hit the same places. The fish are there, and they will not eat nothing. So that's always a good excuse when you always have, well, they're not eating today. So anyway, anybody else got anything? All right, well, I've burned up enough of your time. Thank y'all for coming. I appreciate it so much. I'll be here at Bucks Island booth or Fish Neely Henry. So if you got any other questions, give me a holler. I appreciate y'all bearing with me. Thank you. Yeah, check out those baits right there.
All right, guys, we will be back with a roundtable with Scott Canterbury, Matt Herron, Shaw Grigsby, and I believe we've got one more up, Paul Elias. So it should be an interesting conversation here. We'll be on at 1 o'clock. So we will see you back here. And again, love to have you down here at the venue, Coosa Landing here in Gadsden, today and tomorrow from 10 to 5.